Welcome to The Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by Prometheus. It sounded like a good idea, but now you kind of regret it. Let's start the show.
Welcome everybody to The Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Continental Studios, the studio with an action-packed lineup including the new Scorsese film Kool-Aid. Your favorites on the big screen by Continental Studios. Welcome everyone to The Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And we're filmmakers. We like to make things in front of, behind the camera, and then use that kind of intel to discuss the big boys, the guys who are really slamming around with the big budgets, and see what do we learn from them? What do we think they're doing to make their stuff work? What isn't working and why do we think it's not, based on all the other movies we've kind of broken down? And so with that in mind, I kind of want to dive right in. What are we covering today, man?
Yeah, today we are covering Pacific Rim. So the Guillermo del Toro film. So if you haven't seen this film, please pause the episode and go watch it because we're going to spoil all the fun things.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun things to spoil. We'll dive into some of the story and writing. I'll talk about what I call the rule of resistance, and as well as the wall. And then we'll also talk about action movie energy and other such stuff and things and stuff.
And a quick synopsis of the film. As a war between humankind and monstrous sea creatures wages on, a former pilot and a trainee are paired up to drive a seemingly obsolete special weapon in a desperate effort to save the world from the apocalypse. It's directed by Guillermo del Toro, screenplay by Travis Beacham and Guillermo del Toro, cinematography by Guillermo Navarro, featuring Charlie Hunnam as Raleigh, Idris Elba as Stacker Pentecost, Rinko Kikuchi as Mako, Charlie Day as Newton, Gorman as Gottlieb, and Ron Perlman as Hannibal Chau.
And no clip. I couldn't find the one clip I really wanted that I thought was pertinent. And so I was just like, I'm not going to have a bunch of robots screeching in our ears, punching kaiju. As much fun as that is to watch. Dude, so this came out like 12 years ago, and to one degree or another, it may also go to the heart of your issue with movies before and after a certain era. And I'm wanting to know, one, it's probably been a while since you've seen this, or maybe not, I don't know. But 12 years later, is it still worth watching?
Yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. So I do have some issues with it, but for the most part, it's. I mean, Guillermo del Toro is just fantastic when it comes to engulfing you in a world from a visual perspective. I mean, their sets are just gorgeous. When they go into the what are the robots called?
The Jaegers.
The Jaegers. When they go into the Jaeger's head, that whole set of them being in the head is so awesome because it looks, it's futuristic because it's just gigantic and looks foreign to us right now, and everything is big, but also it looks old and rusted and used, which it should. It's like it really makes you feel like you're experiencing something big, and then even all the stuff outside of the head and outside of the body of the Jaeger looks really real. I mean, when everything is moving, like when the head is dropping down onto the body, you see them shaking. It just really feels visceral. And I love it. The big, huge warehouse where the Jaegers are housed is fantastic. The monsters are just so cool. They're just so cool. I mean, honestly, this is one of my favorite CGI. Like, this entire movie is CGI, the entire thing. And so it's let's think back for a second to the best CGI movie probably ever made, Jurassic Park, to me. And I think this is like the next best one for a lot of reasons. One reason is when you are close up on something, it is as real as it can be. Like, the set designers are incredible for this film. The way that their attention to detail and everything, the way like, when they're in the Jaeger head and they tap a button, the thing that's hanging shakes because it shouldn't be rock solid. Like this is an old, this is kind of like an old tech almost, right? They have these turning things around them.
And maybe on top of that, like maybe it should shake because there should be shocks, right? If you have it rock solid and a tremor rolls through, it breaks everything.
Exactly. So like they thought of a lot. So everything that could be built, I feel like was built. I don't feel like they used CGI to get away from expense or to get away from like the time it would take to build things. I mean, even yes, they're in these harnesses in the head, but they're also holding this thing that charges up the photon gun or whatever it is. They had to build that. They had to build these arms that hold their arms and the feet stirrups that they put in, the suits, like everything around them that's not moving essentially. So they built a lot. So I don't think they did CGI to just get away from stuff. Obviously, this is a giant 300-foot robot fighting 300-foot monsters. It's going to be CGI. They're not real. So I think you go in there because it's so big, understanding this is going to be a CGI movie. And so you like let go of a lot. So the fact that they give you so much actual built things, built sets and everything makes it feel almost Nolan-esque, right? Like they just, because Nolan's famous for building all of these giant sets. And I think they did a great job there. I think it was the whole intro of him losing his brother was really important, not just for the story, but also because it really affected him because they were linked. They were linked when that happened. And so he felt everything his brother felt. And so he's just messed up. That's why he can't get back in a Jaeger. It makes sense why he would quit after that and why he would be apprehensive to go back. And then I love the Mako is her, I guess, adopted father, is the general.
The marshal.
I don't know. Pentecost. Yeah. Marshal is his adopted. And there's a whole story there why he doesn't want her to be in it. It's not that she's a woman. It's his daughter essentially. And he wants to protect her. I love that the pompous Jaeger pilot, that he fights with, Raleigh fights with, turns out to be a savior. He turns out to be a really, like, he has that moment with his father when his father's arm is hurt and he can't go fight in the Jaeger. So he goes to fight with Stacker. They have that moment and they linger on that. He says goodbye to his dog. He says goodbye to his dad. His dad has tears in his eyes. That's my son you've got there. I felt emotional in that moment for not just the dad, but for the son, because you felt this connection that really humanized this guy who you've hated. He's like the pompous guy, right? Throughout the whole film that you can tell Raleigh has a problem with and that he has a problem with Raleigh and they end up having a fight and you're like, this guy is bad. Well, maybe not. This guy sacrifices himself. He knows he's going to die. He knows. His father knows he's going to die. But he wanted to call out to Stacker before they left, like, I want you to know that is my son who's going to die with you. We know what's going to happen. So he turns out to be, it's just a great story there. And then I love Charlie Day's character, Newton. He's very Charlie Day, right? He really, he is he's the comedy aspect of this film, not just because he's funny, but because like the way he delivers his lines and his activity is funny. Him and that he hates the other scientist at first, and then they become like friends because they understand each other now and they know they need each other. I love the idea that you can drift with the piece of a kaiju brain, and that's how they get their information. I think that's brilliant. Yeah. I was watching it this time and I was thinking, if they had this drifting technology, you would have thought that they would have tried this years ago. But there has to be a first for everything, right? Somebody has to initially think, oh, you know what? We could try to drift with a kaiju brain. And this was the first, right?
Yeah.
Like it was, just because you have the technology doesn't mean you think of every way to use it. And I think that this was the first, and that Newton was the first one to think of that, and the first one crazy enough to try it. So how they get their information, because they can't talk to a kaiju, right? I think that's really, really smart. And it's a lot of fun to watch all these battles, and it's just brutal. All the destruction is so great. It's just so great. But it's also human at the same time.
Yeah.
The scene of where we find out that where Mako, the child Mako, the little girl, is running from the kaiju, and then you've got a Stacker who saves her in her mind or whatever. And not only do we get they give us the backstory of them, but it just makes us feel them. You love this little girl. You want her to survive. It's not this grown-up woman, right? Which is harder to like immediately identify with. If you see a little girl on a screen, you immediately love them, right? You're like, I want them to be safe. I don't want them to get hurt. And the fact that Stacker saves her, you're just like, oh gosh, it warms your heart. So yes, there's so much story here, and it's so entertaining at the same time that you just can't help but love it. That being said, I thought that some of the lines were so cheesy and so poorly delivered, but I don't think that that's necessarily the acting thing, because Charlie Hunnam is a great actor.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. I mean, anything you see him in post this, you don't see these issues, but there are some lines, maybe it's the writing or maybe it's the directing. I don't think it's the acting, because he's a fantastic actor. And obviously Idris Elba is, otherworld.
Yeah.
But some lines are just so cheesy and stereotypical for a movie like this, where it's just like, oh God, why did you have to say that? Oh, you could have said anything else. I know it needed a line here, but dear God, and then, I'm sitting there thinking, man, if I'm in the editing bay and I'm watching this, I'm like, ooh, was this the best take they had? Maybe. So that's what makes me think maybe it's a directing thing, and maybe it was a thing where Guillermo said, you know what, we're going to give some vanilla lines because we don't want this to be the heaviest movie ever. Like, the point of this movie is not to be super heavy. The point of this movie is to escape. It's an escapism movie. It's a popcorn movie, right? That's deeper than a popcorn movie usually is. It's got a lot of layers in humanity and relationships. But at the same time, we don't want to make it so heavy that it's hard to watch it again. So we want to give some levity with some cheesy ass lines, right? And that's what I think, because
Yeah.
Guillermo's a fantastic director. So, but other than that, it's just so much fun. Yeah.
Oh man, agreed. I remember watching this when it came out. We were in the middle of pre-production, about to go into production on Threads, our short film.
Oh man.
And went to the theater. I was super excited. One, it's Guillermo del Toro, and I fell in love with his work after Pan's Labyrinth. And so anything he made after that, I was like, I don't care if it looks terrible, I'm going to go watch it. And you see this, what would you call it? Voltron versus Godzilla movie. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, but I'm absolutely going.
Yes.
This could go either way. And you go in with that kind of expectation of, it's going to be big and, action packed. Definitely a little bit more silly than I wanted, but I still had a really good time. And I remember being on set, waiting for the light to change. We were shooting this little pickup shot in a back alley in downtown Austin. And Andrew and I were just kind of sitting around, my co-director. We're sitting around waiting for the light to change. And Andrew looks at me and he's like, you see Pacific Rim? And I was like, I did. He was like, what'd you think? I was like, dude, I liked it. And he was like, yeah, me too. We just kind of bonded over our love of,
that's great.
A silly action movie. And I still love it. And over time, it's only gotten more endearing, because I think going into a movie the first time, You bring all your expectations to it of what you want it to be. Then after you see it and you wrestle with, okay, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or more specifically, what I hoped it would be. It was its own thing. And then you let it sit as its own thing. And then in time, you begin to appreciate it for what it is and not for what you wanted it to be. And time has been so good to this movie for me because, okay, yeah, I didn't necessarily love some of the sillier aspects, with Charlie Day and that other guy who plays Gottlieb, Burn Gorman.
Yeah.
But I thought Burn Gorman was excellent because to me, he strikes me as a dramatic actor who's playing comedy, and he just nails it. He does everything you need him to do for comedy in spades. And being next to Charlie Day, who's a comedic genius, is probably got to be really intimidating because you can't be Charlie Day, which is what you want to be. Probably when you're in a scene with him, you want to reflect his style and his energy, but you can't. If you do, you're cooked. But if you just let your character be the yin to his yang, you can do something really special there. And so Gorman as Gottlieb is playing another scientist who's got a different kind of silliness to him, and he just finds that perfect opposing energy to him. And so I just really tip my hat to that guy because I would never want to be in a scene with Charlie Day doing comedy with him. You would only want to be in a scene with Charlie Day as the straight man, as someone who's being like the solid foundation for him to reflect off of. And I would never want to do comedy next to Charlie Day. F that, man. You're cooked.
Yeah, dude. Totally agree.
And so I was just really impressed. And as time has moved on, like I more and more appreciate Ron Perlman getting into the mix and doing his thing. And I just love this movie for what it is now. And I really respect it because I think I had all the same issues with all the, cheesy one-liners and like pointed. But now I'm like, you know what? This is a 2-hour, 10-minute movie, 11-minute movie that is big in action, and it's really letting you have all this action. And in order to let you have all that, it's really got to get to the point. And they do a great job of being like, okay, we're going to sharpen all the drama down to a very fine edge. And that way, when it's in and out, like we don't really need to sit on all this drama for too long. And I just love it for that now and really respect it for that as a writer. Now I'm looking at this movie and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's cheesy, but to your point, that's what it is. It's a popcorn movie. And if you're going to let it be a popcorn movie, you can't really, unless you turn this into a 2.5-hour movie or 2-hour and 45-minute movie, you need to let it be a little sillier. And that's the genius of Guillermo del Toro, as he said, I'm not going to turn it into a dramatic piece. I'm going to let it be a popcorn film. And in that way, I'm going to enhance everything that it is instead of trying to bend it into something that it isn't. Okay, if it's a popcorn movie, let's go all in. It's going to be brighter. The color is going to be brighter, but we're going to make it darker too, and that'll bring up the contrast. So you can feel that drama in the background. You can feel the impact of every punch, and that'll be there in the contrast. But we're going to put a lot of neon so that there's these flares of friendliness that says, you're safe here. Like, okay, yeah, it's popcorn, and it's got this dramatic edge to it, but the neon lets you know everything's going to be okay. The audio, so heightened, right? Even the knives as he's flipping it out, like have all these crazy knifey sounds that are just to a level 10. The performances were the big one for me. There's a certain level of energy you have to have for a big action film. And if you bring that down too much, too often, it's going to lose its popcorn energy. And so even Idris Elba, right? Like that scene where he goes to recruit Raleigh, Idris is basically yelling when he's recruiting him. He's there. He's like, screaming his exposition, like the world is ending. What do you want to be, soldier? That kind of thing. And it's beautiful. Like it's a simple conversation, but in the context of the movie, it's a moment that's swelling with energy. And he, as an actor, needs to play into that, because if he's just reading the dialogue, it's not that serious. He could play it down and much more serious. But instead, he's playing into the tone of that moment in the context of the movie. It's like, this is the recruitment moment that plays right into this next big energy moment. And so he brings the energy up in his performance to let that all kind of build and swell with the music and with the shift in sequencing. Like, it's wonderful and it's smart. And I think as good as Idris is, like, maybe he picks that up off the page, maybe. But if not, Guillermo is like, hold on, no. I know it looks weird to suddenly start yelling your lines, but I need you to start yelling, like, and it's going to work. Trust me. And then it obviously it does, because he, as a director, is maintaining the vision of this whole thing. He's like, no, this moment is this moment, and here's how you can help. Here's how everyone can kind of chip in. I love that. And throughout the movie, and this goes back to something else you said, like, there's moments of drama, and we don't stay there, but we do need them. And you find these moments of quiet intensity to reset and allow us to go back into like big energy again. Like after Mako's drift failure, right? The first time she's drifting, and we see her fail, like she's about to like completely level the entire complex. And she pulls back out, and we'll dive into that in a little bit, I guess. But I love that we give a lot of these little moments of intensity, right? We give first Raleigh and the Marshall stacker, Pentecost, that we give them a moment of quiet intensity, right? Where he's combating, like, there's a reason I didn't want her to do this. Like, you don't understand. And it's such a good line. It's you see Raleigh grab him and turn him around, and that look on the Marshall's face where he's like, what the hell did you just do? He's like, first, don't ever touch me. Second of all, don't ever touch me.
It's perfect. It's perfect. His response is so perfect there.
Oh, because you believe it, right? He sets it up with his face. And that's another good just acting moment where he probably has a huge block of text right there, but he knows where to put like an ellipsis. He's like, first, don't touch me. Second, don't touch me. And that's it. That's almost its own block. You could break that up into Raleigh sheepishly like recoils, like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done that. And they give him that moment. There's that little moment where he does kind of like, I shouldn't have done that. And Idris Elba lets that moment settle before he proceeds. Look, here's what we're dealing with, right? And then he gives that just a beat to let everything kind of sit and settle, and then moves into the rest of his monologue. It's wonderful acting. So we have that moment of quiet intensity after this big, huge, crazy moment of drifting. And then we move from that moment to Mako and Raleigh, right? They have their own moment of softly connecting where he's telling her what it means to drift, and and that's the moment I really wanted to play, because there's something really special that's happening between them, something that he's pointing out about, like, in combat you're making your decisions, but also there's something deeper that's happening in drifting, and I definitely want to touch on that. But I also want to point out, and I'll ask you a question here in a second after making this comment, but the audio, there's something that happens in that opening with his brother when he loses his brother, right? The arm gets ripped off, and then his brother gets ripped out, and then we're like, what's he gonna do? Like, he's lost half of them. We know how important it is to drift with a co-pilot, and now, like, we hear the portal voice, cannon loading. And I love this little moment because we hear the cannon loading, and you get cued on that with the dialogue of the robot, AI assistant cannon loading. And now we're listening. And I love this audio cue because it's so cool. We feel, because this is an arbitrary moment, right? You could just, as a writer, say the cannon loads and he fires. And as an audience, we know that it's all arbitrary. And yet we feel, because of this audio cue, you can hear the cannon loading. And it starts with this low end of, and you can hear it like loading up. And it's so cool because now we feel like there's no way for it to load faster, even though it's a completely arbitrary decision of how fast it loads. But that audio cue cuts through that like practical mental element, and it gives us something visceral that's like overriding your brain, because until it reaches this pitch that's on the high end, it won't be finished loading. And so you're waiting like, please hurry. Like there's that thing inside of us that's just waiting for the pitch to rise. And that's a complete decision by the director and his sound team. And it's so
Totally
cool
agree.
because it's just completely like upending our ability to think rationally.
Yes.
It's so
it's so tense. It's so full of tension because you want them to just shoot the thing so that they'll survive, but they can't. They literally can't. You're just waiting for the pitch to rise. It's such a great use of sound.
God, that's cool. And I want to totally steal that, because that's one of those moments of like, how do you build a moment and also keep the audience in suspense, and completely like short circuit their internal wiring to make them go along with that ride. But yeah, so my question to you, I guess, it was the audio. To me, action films and horror films lately, they seem just built on clubbing you to death with over the top audio mixing. And to me, this felt like a perfectly mixed film where it was using that stuff without like bludgeoning you with it. How did you feel about the mix and just about, I don't know, did you pick up anything in the music and the sound design?
Man, it's a really good point that you bring up. And I think the reason why it does work so well, why it's so, why it doesn't feel like it beats you over the head, is honestly the editing. Because yes, they have to make the sounds, they have to work them in, but if the editing doesn't give you a break, right? If you're just all for 20 minutes in a fight scene, then there's nothing that a mix can really do to make it not feel like too much, because it just doesn't stop. But for example, in the fight scene that they have in the bay outside of, I guess it's Japan, I don't remember, where there's multiple Jaegers and there's multiple kaijus and they're fighting together, but our Jaeger, our antiquated analog Jaeger, is holding back. That scene, there's several moments where they cut back to them hanging back. So you don't have a bunch of fighting going on, right? So yes, there's fighting and, between the other two Jaegers and the kaijus, but then they cut away to this other Jaeger that's not fighting and we get a break. Or when the power goes out of that one Jaeger with the father and son in it, and the kaiju's just circling, right? It gives you a break of fighting, right? You still feel tension because they can't do anything because their power is out, but the kaiju isn't doing anything either. It's just kind of like circling them, waiting, or you're waiting for it to do something. But you have like these moments of absence of fighting, or absence of just, so much sound, that when it does happen, it feels important. It feels like something is now happening where it wasn't before, and it has given you a little bit of a break. It's like doing a bunch of reps on a bench press. You need a little bit of a break before you can do it again, and so you can get more out of it. Like that's the whole point. So I think that they're brilliant in that kind of way, but also, I think the biggest part of the sound design and why it doesn't feel too much is because of the way the Jaegers move. And I was watching this thinking, why is this different from, say, Transformers?
Yeah.
The difference for me is the way it moves. Transformers, they move fast as you want them to move.
Yep.
They move fast. This is different. It's human beings controlling something that is 1,000 times their size. And it's hard. When they take steps, it's slow inside of the head. The actual machine goes slow. And so you're hearing low end movement, which is much easier to absorb. It's much easier to listen to things in a lower register for a long time than it is the higher register, because all of your higher end, the cilia or whatever it is in your ears in the higher end, they get fatigued a lot faster. And so not only does it get annoying or like harder to hear things at a higher register over a long period of time, but you lose that first the older you get. So like I'm older, so I lose, the highest, I can't hear 10K anymore. I can hear like 8K. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whatever. So they take that into account, and the Jaegers move really slow. And even the kaijus, right? Because they're an organism, they don't have metal on metal. They can use a lot of the lower register as well. So I think the mixing has to be incredible in this film, because everything is kind of like they're trying to pull everything into this lower kind of mid-range register, and all of that has to fit. And you have to know what a kaiju sound is, and you have to know what a Jaeger sound is. But at the same time, they keep them in this kind of like lower end, and it's brilliant because they move so slow. Or slower than like a Transformer does. And that's another reason why I think this is a better movie, because it's real. It's a human being fighting the Jaeger. It is not a machine fighting Jaeger. It's humans fighting the kaiju.
Right.
It's humans controlling the Jaeger fighting that. So yeah. Anyway,
Dude, well, freaking done.
Great question.
I think the other thing that you're pointing at too is the physics, to me, are just wildly different from this versus other kind of big monster movies. Like, I love how much they emphasize the slowness of, like, they're winding up a punch and it's just slowly reaching, and then when it hits, it freaking strikes. Yeah. But it makes physical sense to us, right? Like, I feel like a 300-foot robot shouldn't be whipping around the way they are in their, compound fighting each other. Like, they're moving lightning fast, but physics seems to dictate that the bigger something is, the slower it needs to move. And even the kaiju, even though they're one unified being, don't move that fast. They move about the same speed, maybe a little bit faster, because of the reasons you're talking about. Like, they're not controlled by a person. They move a little bit faster, but they still have a hard time getting back up, shaking off a punch. And so you can load up a rocket punch, and although the physics feels more accurate to me, and I think watching this and seeing that, it helps me buy into the believability aspect of it. Like, I buy in a little bit. Like, does that seem right to you? Like, the physics would dictate everything should move slower?
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. The smaller you are, the faster you can move, and bigger you are, the slower you move, right? It takes much more inertia, whatever you want to call it, to move something that weighs 40 tons. You got to get it started. And in order to get it started, you need a ton of energy. And once it gets started, then you're good. But to get it started, it's going to take longer to do it. And that's a lot. That's like a exponential thing. The reason why an ant can lift, 10 times, 60, 50 times its body weight it's because it's small. But if an ant was my size, it wouldn't be able to lift 50 times its body weight. Its legs just wouldn't allow for it to do that. It's an exponential thing. So because of that, you're going to move slower if you're a 40-ton arm than if you're, like a 50-pound arm. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be different. So of course, yes, you're spot on there.
Nice. Well said. My last few notes are on story and writing. What I call the rule of resistance is, you see it in virtually every movie you've ever watched, which is someone asks for something and someone says no, and then they appeal, and then they say yes. Like, it's almost never as simple as, hey, can you give me a cup of coffee? Yes, right away, boss. Like, if it is, then you understand that dynamic right away. This person does what that person asked them to do all the time. Whereas often you use it, right? A request is met with resistance before compliance, and it gives the scene some tension and an opportunity to add perspective, like to let us know more information. It's an excuse for exposition usually, right? So when the marshal, Pentecost, goes to recruit Raleigh, Raleigh says he can't drift again after feeling his brother's death. Then the marshal, of course, rebuts, like, the world is coming to an end, so where would you rather die, here or in a Jaeger? And then Raleigh signs up, right? We cut away. So what do we learn there? Like, if he just says, you got it, boss, we don't really have an opportunity to learn anything. Whereas if he says, I can't do it because, right, it cues us to the emotional dangers of drifting. And so now we have a layer of resistance, and it gives the marshal an opportunity to come back over the top and say, screw your emotions. He lets us know the danger is imminent, and it ramps the stakes up higher than his emotions. Like, okay, now we've established, like, this guy's got a problem. He's got an emotional baggage that he has to deal with. Well, that's an opportunity for an arc. He's got something to overcome. And of course it does come back. And then later, Raleigh, whenever he's trying to find his co-pilot, like, he wants to fight Mako, and the marshal refuses. And then Raleigh rebuts that maybe Marshall's star pupil isn't up to snuff. And then Marshall relents, right? And lets her fight. So what do we learn there? We learned that, one, she follows his orders. There's something he's worried about, but it isn't her fighting skill. Like, we learned a lot just through that little exchange. Like, there's a reason he doesn't want her to fight, but because he lets her fight, we quickly understand it's not because she's not a good fighter. So what is it? Well, we'll figure that out, later. And then similar and also different, when Gottlieb rushes in, to let Marshall, like, hey, Pentecost, you need to come with me. And Pentecost is like, not now, I'm busy. Resistance, right? And then Gottlieb gets to yell, Newton drifted with a kaiju. Now the marshal complies. He's like, oh, well, okay, we need to see what this is about. And so there's logic to the scene, of course. Like, one, he is in the middle of something. They're running a test. It's, Mako is there to in a way that she's never been before, which of course gives the rest of that sequence an excuse to fall apart, right? She falls apart. He's not there. And then we also get to learn more about, like, but none of that has to do with what do we actually learn through his resisting. And nothing really. We already kind of knew everything there was to know about that scene, but it does reaffirm the idea that drifting with a kaiju is crazy. But really, I think that little moment just adds energy to the scene. And this is a big energy movie, so why not keep that energy going, keep it up, create as much tension and conflict as you can, because that's what we're doing here. We're in a movie, and it's a popcorn movie. And then, of course, in that moment is when Mako goes into the memory, and I love this little moment. For me, it's my favorite moment of the entire movie for so many reasons. One is the way we move into it, because we focus on her, and as we pivot away from him in the background, it becomes a 2-shot to a 1-shot, I think. And the lights fade off. Snow begins to drift in. We're in the middle of the machine. And yet, it's blending in with her memory, because this is what she's feeling. And I love it because it's a camera move with a bunch of gags, right? The lighting cutting off and isolating her, the snow drifting in. But it's not a gag for the sake of being cool, which is what a lot of films do now. They're like, hey, we can do a oneer. Look at us do this oneer. And it's kind of just doing it for the sake. They're losing the meaning of oneers, right? It's supposed to be there to emotionally connect you with this character, with this moment, to build tension, all these things. And they kind of use it for that, but really it's an excuse to be like, look at me. And here, it's not a gag. It's not a bunch of interesting things. It's there because we're watching her as a little girl become terrified. And we're seeing her get locked into this memory. And it's revealing the danger of, drifting. It's beautiful. And with all that, it's revealing the danger of operating a weapon based on emotions buried in the past. Because her, stuck in this memory, is still operating this Jaeger, and it's about to kill everyone in sight. And I love that because it's all tied into what I think this movie is fundamentally about. And it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's about the beauty of connecting. And this is where that other section of that scene of Mako and Raleigh having their conversation is, because he's trying to let her know, to let someone else in, to really connect, you have to trust them. It's about trust. Drifting is about trust. Fighting together is about trust. And the wall is this really nice metaphor, because the world decided to replace fighting together with a wall. And what was the result? The wall was immediately destroyed. Walls cannot protect you, right? They isolate you. They make you unable to connect with other people. And that's what the really cool metaphor they're going here. Drifting together is about, letting and accepting the memories and the past of others and letting them know yours. And you're trusting each other with these things. That's so cool. And it's okay to fight each other, as we had in the past, right? You have German Jaegers, and you have this idea of Japanese monsters. We're blending cultures in this movie. And that's not accidental, I don't think, because this movie is about coming together as a world, unifying to fight something greater than yourselves. And you could make an assumption that they're talking about like the world itself collapsing through like environmental catastrophes, and maybe the kaiju represent these environmental disasters, right? Because they're coming not from space, they're coming up from the ocean, they're coming up from inside the earth. And so I think there's a metaphor here about us coming together. And so it's okay to have fought each other. It's not okay to leave it there. You also have to fight together and for each other. And so there's this beautiful element. That's why I think it's important that to operate this machine, you have two people coming together, because doing it on your own, it'll hurt you. It'll take something from you and it won't give it back. And so doing it together is the only way. I don't know. I think that's a really cool, very subtle method of building this universe. And I love it for that. So that was my takeaway. I don't know if you have anything that you see.
That I couldn't agree more. That is the best scene. And you're right. They do a 2-shot and they pan to her, and then it starts snowing, like raining ash, and she starts walking forward.
Ash. Yeah.
I remember. And then, and all this, and she's holding a shoe, her shoe, a little girl. And then we see her as a little girl crying. It's so good. It's because now we're identifying her as this little girl. We also see that she's gone through stuff. We see her backstory. We know his already, but we don't know where she came from. And then obviously we see, like her get saved, but everything that happens when she's a little girl is it's memory. So it's not completely accurate too. So like a kaiju wouldn't just go after a little girl, right? It just destroys things. But in her mind, this is how she remembers it. She remembers a kaiju going after her, her being trapped. And then you see this nail come in and like, crush the dumpster that she was hiding behind, and then scratch that scene was so cool. Just the nail, which is bigger than a human, like scraping the concrete, the ground as it pulls away. Like you really feel like this thing is going after her, and in her mind as a little girl, she's thinking that, right? And so we obviously now can identify with her. We like feel for her. And then later on, we see that she's saved, right? So I couldn't agree more. Like that is such a necessary scene, and it's so well executed. They didn't have to do the one from 2-shot to 1 and then her walking forward. They didn't have to do that. They could have made cuts, but they chose not to. And then in that also, the one thing I'll add to that is like as she's a little girl and she sees the kaiju and she starts running down the street. They do this, and I was just watching it, so I just saw it, and I thought it was cool. A lot of times I think maybe filmmakers think, not all of them, obviously, but like think I have to connect everything, right? I have to connect this shot with that shot, but it's a jump shot that happens. It's a jump cut that happens. She's running down the street, and then we jump cut to her running down, turning and running down the alley. Like there is nothing in between. It's just like a jump cut. Remember, this is her memory. So this is not something that has to connect. Somebody's walking and then they look up and then they turn this way. We don't have to connect anything because it's a memory. And I think that makes us feel more like it's a memory because of that jump cut. So using, kind of like strange things happening to remind us that this is a memory is also like, pretty cool in that. But yes, great call out. That's an awesome scene.
God, well done. I think the other thing that really impresses me about this movie is that it got made. It's not built. Yeah. It's not built on IP.
Remember, it's 12 years ago.
Yeah, and it was 12. Yeah, that's true. But it's not built on IP, right? It's not like, oh yeah, the Pacific Rim comic books. I don't think there's anything that this is based on. It was just like, and I'm not clear if Travis Beacham wrote it or if Guillermo del Toro said, hey, I liked your work on this other thing. Let's work on this thing together, and gave him first crack, because I think he got a story by credit, Travis Beacham. And then they sat down and co-wrote the screenplay. But either way, this was not a cheap. I mean, this had to have been a $120 million movie or so. I'm going to Google it real quick. $180 million, yeah. And so for a studio to be like, cool, yeah, we'll crack open the safe, because $180 million in the early 2010s, not super common. That really, it stinks that we can't do more of this when I see, I don't know, I don't want to get too high on my horse here, but I just see other production companies making $200 million movies, and it's like, why? Y'all didn't take the time to really flesh out your beats, and it just feels like you thought the spectacle was enough. And Pacific Rim could have just been spectacle, but they really found those moments that you talked about earlier between the father and the son, and it all kind of unifies into something that works in a 2-hour, 11-minute film. Like, they didn't say, oh, 180 million, let's milk it. Let's give people what they really want. Let's add another 15, 20 minutes of whatever. Like, they really put excellence into it, and I don't know if there's a lot of that anymore, man. I don't know. I'll stop because I'm about
Well, then we can really quickly just talk a little bit about the difference. Like, would this get made today? Because I don't think that it would.
I feel like it wouldn't.
And if it did, I don't think it would be as good, because I think that I'll just say it. I think that streaming services think that we're stupid, and they don't think that we need the backstory of everything. The human aspect of this. They think we just want to see robots fight monsters. And that's not what we want to see. I mean, yes, it's fun. That's the popcorn aspect of it. And that is the payoff, right? Mm-hmm. But unless there is no payoff, unless we care about the people who are running these machines, who are like controlling these machines, if you don't care about them, then it doesn't matter. I could just watch, robots fighting monsters all day and just be like, whatever. But I want to see the flashback of why this woman like has trouble drifting, and she gets lost in the drift, and where she came from. And I want to see the relationship between human beings. Like, that is super important. I don't think that everybody in the industry is like inept and doesn't know how to make a movie.
Right.
I'm just saying that when you look at a conglomerate, like you look at a Netflix or something that's just their goal is to make as much content as they possibly can, and they call it content, which is different, to keep your attention, right? Because you need new stuff on the platform. And in order to do that, you got to make it fast. And in order to make it fast, you got to make it simple. And in order to make it simple, you lose detail. You lose like sometimes the humanity, because they just want to show robots fighting monsters. And this is a great example of a film that said, we're going to make robots fighting monsters, but we're going to make humans, we're going to make the human relationship the core of this, and the human aspect of this. Like, we're going to spend a good amount of time showing beautiful shots, but just having human beings being at the core of it. Because I don't, when I see a robot, when I see a Jaeger, I see human beings running that Jaeger when it's moving. I don't see a robot fighting a monster. I see human beings fighting, and not just the two that are running it.
Right.
I see multiple, like societies. Like, I see countries. I see Germany, like you said earlier. I see Germany. I see Japan. I see United States fighting kaijus. How do you do that? You have to have the human aspect of it. And I just don't see this happening, at least not at $180 million, expense today. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but anyway, it's a masterpiece in my mind in a lot of ways.
It really stinks because I think the name of the game, everything you're talking about, also comes down to risk and the lack of people in a position to greenlight projects are unwilling to risk because it might cost them their job. Like if you say, yeah, let's take a risk and it's really outside the box, then it fails. It's like, well, everyone but you thought we shouldn't do it, but you persisted, and here we are, $200 million in the hole. What now? Well, now you got to look for another job. And if the last thing on your, resume is a really big fail, your kids may not go to college at, Harvard. They might have to settle for Princeton. Like, it's just, I think just fundamentally you need artists, or at least people who really love and appreciate art. And you also just need smaller budgeted films. Whenever I think the biggest problem is all the consolidation of studios, because now they've been doing all this like easy money, whether that's, Federal Reserve easy money or just the idea of, well, you make a Marvel movie and you hit 3 aces, on the slot machine, and it just pumps out all these coins. Like, well, to make those movies is going to cost $200 million every time, and the payoff isn't going to be big enough if you make a bunch of $5 million movies. It's just like the bigger you are, the more kaiju need probably a lot of calories to keep that monster going. Disney needs a lot of money to keep that monster going. Like, you need smaller studios that appreciate like a $10 million win, or else, you just have bigger and bigger and bigger money issues. And we need, as an audience, we need smaller and smaller films that are more personal and more intimate, that take longer to get greenlit because the development process takes longer. And you want someone who's going to spend a year and a half polishing and thinking about a script. And you want an executive over them saying, yeah, but what about this part? And the executive understands the money aspect, but they also understand the art aspect. And there's so many great executives out there that do understand the art aspect, that will help your script get better. And I think they excel in places where, okay, yeah, we have $100 million in the bank account, and we're going to make, 20 movies over the next 5 years. And we're going to really take our time with these 20 movies. And we're going to really help the artists utilize everything their story's trying to be for the dollar amount that we have for them. Like, okay, you have this crazy moment, but do you need to see, DC explode in a nuclear explosion? Or can we just see Sarah Connor at the chain link fence getting blown to pieces? Can we see that instead? Because that's cheaper and it's more intimate and it's going to help you communicate your story better. Oh, yeah, I guess we can trim budget and heighten the stakes. Why not? Let's do that. It'll make it a better movie in so many different ways. And so, yeah, I think a big part of the problem is bloated companies as much as anything else. And whenever you're that bloated, you're only pumping out content to a large degree.
Dude, yeah. It's the worst. I mean, I just take, if a message to the studios, if you're thinking about stuff like this, just take the Jaws approach, right? Mm. It's still to this day one of the greatest ways to introduce something that is scary and large. Don't show it, right? It's all about the people around it and how they respond to it. Like, it's cheaper. It's usually more effective because you're talking about a person or people and their reactions. And it's scarier in a lot of ways. We've talked about it on the pod a lot, So there are ways around it, but like unless human beings are at the center of the story,
Yeah.
or something human-like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's on the other side, on one side or the other of the uncanny valley, right? Like it's obviously human-esque or it's obviously not, but it has human attributes. Either way, humanity has to be at the core. And if it is, then you know, that's the first thing, right?
Yeah.
And then everything around it can be the popcorn stuff. And this is a great example of that. So
Nice. Well said. What are, unless you have final thoughts, what are you going to recommend this week? Final thoughts or reco?
No final thoughts. I think we talked it to death, which is hilarious because I don't know. I didn't think that we would have such a deep conversation about this movie, but I guess that's why it's so good, right?
Yeah.
Because it's about more than what it's about, right?
Yeah.
And I loved your assessment of it being, you know, like a world movie and like stuff. So anyway, So that being said, I'm going to recommend something I don't know. I think you'll be surprised that I'm recommending this, and I'm surprised that I'm recommending this, honestly. I'm going to recommend the new Fantastic Four. For a specific reason, I'm not going to give anything away, but specific reason. One, I hate Fantastic Four. I think it's boring and stupid and pointless. And so I went into it being like, this is just a movie I'm going to see with my kids. It's going to be fun, right? And yes, it's not a perfect movie, man. You know, I'm not gonna say that, but there's some deeper things about it. And there are it's a very strange movie. It's not just a superhero movie. It's very strange. I don't know how to explain it, and I'm not gonna try, but it's not what you would expect going in for a lot of reasons. It is what you'd expect, but it's also not. And I left there thinking, wow, that was a great experience on a big screen. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but
Not yet,
that was a great experience on a big screen. So I would definitely recommend seeing it in a theater if you can. There are some surprises, and if you've seen the trailer, you know that Silver Surfer is in it. There are some things that are wrong, but there are things that are really, really much better because I didn't expect them. Fantastic Four.
Wow. Okay.
I know.
Well done. I'm seeing it today, so
oh, great.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
You got to tell me what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to recommend a Spielberg film that also has giant robots. It's called War of the Worlds. It's with Tom Cruise. This was one of my top 5 movie theater experiences. I didn't know what to expect walking in, and it just blew me away. I think it's a fantastic theatric experience, and I think it'll probably still be a lot of fun for the first time at home. I adore that movie, and so if you're not familiar with it, you know, it's about alien invasion, and from there it's up to you. Go explore. So we also have an art spotlight. I've been slacking on these for the past 4 years, and so this one is from Justin Betancourt. I hope to have him and his wife Kirby, his producer, on the show at some point. But this one's called I Said Oat Milk, directed by Justin Betancourt. It's fun. It's a little 4 or 5 minute, fun action film. I'll leave it at that. You can check the show notes for it, and you can check it out. And stay tuned for next week. We're going to take a look at the new movie Together. I think this is Alison Brie and Dave Franco. And this one will be interesting for a lot of reasons, if nothing else for some of the stories around its release. There's some interesting stuff that happened there that I guess you don't know about. And so
I don't know about them. Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Okay.
It'll tie into a recent conversation that we had about protecting your IP. And so stay tuned for that. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget, subscribe, drop us a review, leave us a note. If there's something you want us to cover. If you want to comment on this episode in particular, you can do that at thepestlepodcast.com/Pacific Rim.
And our quote of the day is from one of the greatest written songs of all time, John Lennon, Imagine. Imagine all the people living life in peace. That's my personal opinion, because it will always hold true, and it's such an interesting perspective. Yeah, just great quote, man. What made you pick this?
I was surprised by what I found about this very subtle idea about unifying and coming together. And war, sure, there's times whenever you don't have a choice whether or not you go to war. I mean, that's what America found itself in with World War II, tried to stay out, right? And they got pulled in. And in this movie, it felt like this was an excuse for humanity to come together and fight together. But ultimately, the goal is about living in peace. And it's really hard to imagine wanting peace when all you know is fighting. And I think as a globe, maybe as just a history of humanity, we have a really hard time convincing people that peace is even possible whenever you've never really known massive extended moments of peace. Like, America keeps creating wars. Like, we're so addicted to this idea that you have to fight that we just start creating fights. And so I imagine, right? Like, imagine people actually living in peace, because if you don't, how are you ever going to get there? So I don't know. I think I was looking for something that spoke to this idea of living in peace whenever this movie is trying to talk about connection and accepting each other's cultures, accepting each other's pasts in order to move on into another way of living. So in my imagination, this movie is about war, but it's ultimately about trying to stop fighting. Yeah, I don't know, or something.
And what do people fight about? Country, religion. Imagine there's no country. Imagine there's no heaven. Like,
wow.
This song, I'm telling you, like, take away these things that divide us. And what are we? We are the same. We are all the same. And it's just a great quote, man. Fantastic. Nothing to add to that. Oh, man. This is a great episode. I had a blast. Hopefully you guys had a great time too. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Review us. It all helps a lot. And if there's a film, share us too. And if there's a film you'd like to see us talk about or pick apart, or just our opinion on, let us know. Who knows? Maybe one day we will cover it. Until next time, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies. Oh yeah, that's great. That was a great moment. So great. And because, you want it to move faster, so why not a rocket? But then it takes time for the rocket to turn on, and you're just like, come on.